Chapter 4. John's Indiscretion. John sat in his office, staring out the window aimlessly. He didn't know what to do. He had been counting on that Bertram bid, and it fell through. Bob was right. He couldn't have known. But that didn't help him right now. JT's had no work, and he had told his scaled-back crew not to bother coming into work this week, if it all went through his mind. At least, that was the way he was feeling. A prostitute, or so he assumed, walked by on Kathleen. They had been here ever since the police had chased them from downtown a couple of years ago. It was a sting operation. John had mixed feelings about this. He didn't know whether the women or the men who used them should have bared the brunt of the enforcement effort. In any case, it hadn't worked. They only moved a couple of blocks to a new home, and Kathleen was it. For hours, he sat in his utilitarian office thinking about he could save JT's. It was critical. The firm didn't have enough work to even keep his roofers busy. He had already let his renovators go, and he didn't know whether he could get them back. He wanted Phil back. He was an excellent carpenter. As much as he racked his brain, no solutions to JT's problems came to mind. He couldn't change the world. People weren't spending money on renovations. They were saving any money they had for a rainy day. Renovations were considered a luxury, and people couldn't afford luxury these days, or didn't want to. What about the kids? Gynette? He wondered. He had been thinking for hours. It was only lunchtime. Too early to go home. There was a bar up the street, so he went there. The patrons were regulars. That was what John needed. He didn't want to get into any in-depth conversations. He wanted light conversation. Something to get his mind off of JT's and its woes. He greeted the customers he knew on the way to the bar. "Can I get you anything?" Looking at the liquor, he said, "I'll have a draft beer, please. I'm going to have something to back that up." The bartender filled a mug with beer and gave it to him. "A double scotch, please. Glenfiddich." The bartender got the scotch, put a double shot in a glass, giving it to him. "That'll be $12, the bartender said. John put a 20 on the bar. The bartender scooped it up and gave him change. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you." John wasn't in the mood for talking. He'd rather sit and sulk. So he did. Quickly, Gynette and the children came to mind. What are they going to do, he wondered. What is JT's going to do? And last, but by no means least, what am I going to do? He took a good mouthful of scotch, wiped his mouth with his hand, and returned to worrying about his family. He wasn't sure about what he was going to do, but if he analyzed the order in which they had come to his mind, he would have recognized they had come to his mind in exactly the reverse order they should have, or so most people thought. His energies were going to be used to answer the last question first, because, consistent with his personality, he wouldn't be able to help himself. He finished his scotch and ordered another one, his second double. The guy sitting next to him started to talk about his work. John wasn't at all interested. He had his own problems to worry about. but listened nonetheless. The guy continued, I go to work when I can. What do you do? I'm a roofer. Ouch. That was close to home. Couldn't help thinking. Which company are you with? Leak Free. It's been on and off for the last couple years, anyway. I have my own company, JT Renovations. Has it been slow for you too? Yeah, it has. In fact, we just had a job fall through. I was sure we were going to get it. What happened? There wasn't anything I could do. I wasn't even going to charge for my time. But how was I supposed to know that she had a brother in the business? I couldn't have. Nah, you couldn't have. Funny, isn't it? The woman even said that my bid was good. Just my luck. The one time I'm not even charging for myself, and she's got a brother. Unbelievable. It'll turn around. It's got to. You're probably right. John finished his double scotch. Would you like another? The bartender asked. No, thank you, John said, taking the last gulp of his beer. I'll have another one of these, said, holding his mug up. She went to the refrigerator and got another chilled mug out. She filled it to the top and gave it to him. John looked down at his watch. He had at least 3 hours to kill. He didn't want to go home early. Gynette would be reminded of JT's situation, and he didn't want that. He hoped it would, but knew it wouldn't go away by itself. Thanks, he said. The bartender left him alone. So did the guy next to him, leaving John with his own thoughts. He thought about many things, but they all seemed to end up involving JT's situation and exactly what he was going to do to get his family through the next few months. The more he struggled with finding a magic bullet, the more frustrated he got. There wasn't one. I should have seen the writing on the wall and have reduced my salary probably about a year ago. In retrospect, he thought, oh well, live and learn. They had a couple of months before it would affect them financially, but that was when Johnny was going to go back to school. Tammy was going to start half days. He thought about how much that was costing his family, knowing that it was costing them an arm and a leg. They could live very comfortably on the tuition alone. But he would be admitting defeat in Gynette's mind, and right now, that wasn't something he was willing to do. He had a couple of months to figure it out, to make it work without affecting their lifestyle. So that was what he was going to do. John hadn't had a cigarette in years, but knew that was why the patrons kept going outside. It wasn't so much that he had a craving for a cigarette. He didn't have one at all, but he was going to have a smoke. He borrowed one from the bartender and walked outside. 2 other people sat out there at a picnic table that was chained to the wall. He joined them. How are you doing? Good, thank you, they answered together, but they didn't say anything more. So John sat beside them and took in the neighborhood. The Donovan wasn't overly busy, but it was busy enough. People went in and came out of the confectionaries nearby. Most of them left with only cigarettes. A few of them came out with something else. He reached into his pocket and found a $20 bill. That's enough to buy smokes, he thought, so he went to get some. On his way across the road, he noticed a young woman just standing there. She was 20 at the most. Hi, she said. Hi. You wouldn't have a smoke I could borrow? he wondered. When am I going to get it back? He accepted the misuse of the word because he had just done the same thing. He too had borrowed a cigarette from the bartender. I'm just going to buy some. Would you like one? Yes, please. Wait here. I'll give you one. John went to get a package of cigarettes. He found her attractive. Anybody would have. Here you go. Thanks. Can I buy you a drink? That'd be nice. Well, come on. I'm just across the road. She smiled, followed him across the road. He was aware of the reputation the Donovan had gotten recently, and the thought of her being a prostitute didn't bother him. In fact, he hoped she was. It would give him something nice to do while he passed the time. Gynette, as gorgeous as she was, and the kids didn't matter to him now. All that mattered was that he needed to pass some time, and right now, he couldn't think of a better way. Holding the door open, he said, "After you. What do you want to drink?" "I'll have a gin and tonic, please." "Do you come here often?" "Not really. I just need to clear my mind." "What happened?" "I have my own firm, and I just lost a contract." "Sorry to hear that." "What type of firm do you have?" she asked, showing real interest. "A renovation firm, and things have been tough, but not this tough." Their conversation was innocent enough. In fact, so innocent that he wondered whether his assumption was right. But halfway through their second drink, she clarified things for him. "Do you want to have some fun?" "I'm right," he said to himself. "What do you have in mind?" She leant over and whispered into his ear, "We could go next door and get a room." She made herself more comfortable. She purposely brushed her bare leg against his. Her provocative behavior was working. She aroused him. "How much?" "That depends. What do you want me to do?" "Everything." "For how long?" "A couple of hours." With a provocative smile, she held up 2 fingers. "That's a deal. Follow me to my car. We're not going to use a fruit hotel. We'll go to a nicer one." "Okay." There was no way John could have known that he had picked the same hotel Jean-Paul and Gynette used. While they had a drink, John slipped his friend a room key saying, "I'll see you soon." "Okay." And with an air of confidence beyond her years, she left him to wait for him. He waited a few moments, then went to join her. He had never done this before, and wasn't sure why he was doing it now, but he was. For him it was purely physical. He wondered if it was the same for her. In fact, he wasn't even sure she got any enjoyment out of it at all. He did, but it was only a way for him to climax. There was nothing that approached love at all, even if he did find her good looking. Her looks competed with Gynette's. "Hi, honey. I'm home," John said as he came through the front door. "Hi. How was your day?" "I haven't figured it out yet." He walked over and kissed her. "You've been drinking," she said, almost asked. "Yes," he admitted. "I went down the road for lunch." "Did you have fun?" What a question. Being as deceptive as possible, he said, "Very much so. I'm going to have a shower." "Okay, see you when you're finished. Do you want to barbecue tonight?" "Sure, that would be nice." Gynette didn't know what to say. She didn't blame him for wanting to wash his thoughts away. It had been tough on him. JT's had been through some difficult times, but nothing like this. He was at risk of losing the firm. She felt it was best to leave him alone for the time being. Later, once he relaxed, they would get into their regular routine, as if nothing had happened. She hoped. She heard the shower being shut off. Snapping her head to look upstairs, she abruptly said, "I have to be going. Goodbye. Sorry. See you tomorrow." "Okay," Jean-Paul said. "Bye." She turned the phone off. John asked as he came down the stairs, "Are the kids downstairs?" "Yes. They're with Maria." "Johnny, Tammy, your dad's home." "Hi, Daddy," they shouted back. "I guess they're not coming upstairs. I think they're watching one of their favorite shows. I'll get the barbecue going." "Were you going to make some rice and salad?" "When we're ready." "In about 15 minutes. Let me know." "I will." Now they were both guilty of infidelity, but Gynette's feelings went farther than his did. Jean-Paul fulfilled not only a physical need for her, but what had become an emotional one as well. What John had done only fulfilled a physical need for him. He still had his family, and what he had done hadn't affected that. He was still the man of the house, and even though he didn't know how he was going to do it, he was going to make sure it remained that way, hook or by crook.